Hey folks, back again. I have had some weak points, but I'm still on the streak, so I'm at day 50 right now. It's an accomplishment in terms of like recent records, but as far as Nofap is concerned, I've done much more than that in the past. But anyways, it's not what I wanted to make my video about. So I think I did talk last time about some of the legal issues with the probate settlement, and I guess it's, what I can tell, it's still ongoing. But the big deal is that our attorney, who 2 months ago claimed she was going to put together paperwork for the motion, fill it all out. She was going to get us rough drafts for affidavits so we can then go take those rough drafts and expound upon them and put all the details of of the person representative's misconduct and his sister's misconduct, and all the evidence and reasoning we had for why he should be removed. She basically dropped off the face of the earth for about 2 months. First month, she did have an ongoing election campaign, which did not result in her being elected, but she disappeared during that. Then of course after that, I don't know, I think she decided to take a vacation or something like that, and when she got back, she was basically prioritizing a bunch of other people's cases and essentially screwing off when it came to our case. Eventually she finally did get not only myself, my sister, and then also my dad some affidavit rough drafts. We jumped right at it, worked things out. There were some rough patches because I think my dad didn't really seem to understand why he needed to wait until I got mine done, which I didn't take too long to get it done, because we needed our stories to match up and be able to corroborate each other when it comes to different acts of intimidation, attempted extortion, fraudulent behavior, attempts to defraud us of our inheritance, etc., by my by-law cousin, who is a real dirtbag, and he is a cop, so I guess this experience is kind of enlightening me as to a lot of people's perspectives on cops. I kind of had sort of a sentiment about or a sense of it, but the difference between having sort of a vague sort of gut level, oh, I get why people don't like cops, or why people might not like cops, versus no, I get it. Or why people might have apprehensions at the very least about when they're dealing with somebody who is a cop, and the kinds of personalities who are attracted to that line, which makes me sound like I'm talking like Frank Herbert, how not that power corrupts, but that power attracts the corruptible. They become drunk on violence and blah 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 blah. They become drunk on power, etc., etc. I can't remember the exact wording, but where was I? So I put it together in the actual, I was gonna say 8-page. It's slightly over 8 pages in terms of the actual meat of the writing. Pretty much the rest of it is just the formatting, and then the signature page, and then there's a seal from the notary. I got it notarized at my local bank, because one of the customers there, they're able to provide that service in addition to regular banking. But and I've had stuff notarized there beforehand. My eyes are kind of itchy for some odd reason, and I've had sort of an ongoing cold, I guess. It used to be way worse, but now it's down to just some slight congestion in my nose, my nasal cavity, so to speak, and then itchy throat on occasion, itchy nasopharyngeal area, leading to itchy ears. But anyways, where was I? So I provided very substantial affidavit. I went over so many damn things. I mean, if she doesn't like how my exact wording is and I gotta adjust that and reword things and get it re-notarized, okay, fine. But like, you know, I did that. My dad, he had to go redo his a couple times, and then he was able to make sure his matched up with mine, including like spellings of names and that sort of thing. And we got that all to them, but even though, no, it was last week. Even though last week, we had a conference call scheduled with her, and she had promised that she would be giving us a court date because, you know, essentially she said she had everything and she was submitting it, or had, you know, and essentially by the time we would have this conference call, it would be submitted, so she would have a court date. Well, she ghosted us on that. Last minute, the legal system had to reschedule to this Monday. Same time, it would be like an afternoon call, conference call. And she ghosted us on that, and I guess the legal system was out of the office, so she couldn't, like, you know, respond to that. I guess her mom was in for surgery and all these things, and so eventually, you know, I mean, they're closed on Wednesday, so I had called on Tuesday. I got in contact with the legal assistant, informed her what had happened. And the legal assistant is like on our side. Like, she's been standing up for us and advocating for us to the point that she's kind of afraid that if she pushes any further, that, you know, the attorney's going to fire her. Because she, you know, had told her like repeatedly, like, hey, you know, don't take on cases that, you know, don't take on cases that you know, you can't guarantee you'll be able to handle, or, you know, don't you know, take up work for people, or take money from people and promise them you're going to handle their case as, you know, you should as a lawyer, as an attorney, and, you know, then ghost on them and not, you know, handle the case properly. You know, don't go take on a workload that you can't handle, because it's a serious business. And she understood like our frustrations and our concerns and our fears and all these things. And I know at this point in any conversation about lawyers, and people be like, oh, lawyer and liar, you know, they sound very similar, you know, haha. But so I talked to the legal system on Tuesday, then Wednesday came and they were closed, and that's when I got my affidavit, you know, all done up and notarized. And I had to get into a real yelling match with my dad, because he had gone apparently behind both my back and my sister's back and gone and notarized the bare minimum, like, rough draft and gotten it, you know, sent over to the attorney. And then I was like, you know, what the bleep, or why the hell did you go do that? You know, you go put that before a judge, I'm gonna look like I'm talking on my, you know, A-double snakes. And so then he was like, okay, finally, you know, he listened, and he went and we did a sort of, it was a bit of a copy paste from some of the stuff, and then he had to edit it, put it into his words, you know, reword what was there, because yeah, it's for the stuff where he was present. And so then he went and sent that, and then he had to do it a third time, because, you know, I noticed that my spell, one of the only one instance when I was I'd already printed it out, and I was already at the bank, and I looked at it, I caught this one instance of that scumbag cousin's name, which was misspelled. They spell it one way on, like, the police department's Instagram account, because they have a photo of him, oh, you know, new to the blue and all that sort of stuff. And, you know, their PR campaign that they try to put on this, you know, we're like here to serve and all that, you know, serve and protect and all that mumbo jumbo. Which, for some folks, I'm sure, on these police forces, like, it's not mumbo jumbo, it is how they live. But then, you know, as with most professions, for most people, it's just a job. And then you have, you know, you have like maybe the 1 to 2% that take it seriously. You have the 96%, let's say, that it's just a job, and then you got the 2% who are the crooked types who, you know, they take advantage of their position and they essentially use that to commit all sorts of egregious actions, you know, up to and including crimes. But they spell his name one way on that, and then they spell his name a completely different way. Well, not completely different. It's one letter difference in their roster, and so we went off the roster, and that was also the spelling that they'd repeatedly used in this group chat that we used to have. So I corrected that, printed mine out, and I made sure I used color or auto detect, because one of the pages has a photo of this ring that I gave my grandma that we need to find out about and get back from them, because I mean, if you were to read through the affidavit, like I do point out the fact that they essentially stole that item, that piece of jewelry off of my grandma. She was in the hospital dying. Like this is how scummy these people are, and they had no right to take it, not even like by the court's leave or anything, because that hadn't come into play at all at that point in time. But and obviously they could have sold it off, etc., etc. But we get them in court. If we do, we can have them answer for that. But anyways, where was I? So then my dad had to redo his. He got re-notarized. This time he's been on board as far as that's concerned. So he got that re-notarized sent over. I got mine notarized, sent over, and I uploaded onto our, my case portal. And what else? And that was on Wednesday. And then on Thursday, I had to call like 7 times in a row just to get the legal assistant on the line. And that's when I essentially got the confirmation. I did get the confirmation that our suspicions that she hadn't done anything were true. And I can't get on a call with them on Friday, or basically like today, because I don't have anything to talk about. I'm not done filling out the paperwork, and it's like you've had 2 months to do this, ma'am. Like, you could have taken like 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, half an hour out of a single day each week and just worked away at it. You could have gotten us these affidavit rough drafts. You could have just gotten that to us so we could work on it in the meantime. You could have dropped us a line. You could have had your legal assistant call us once a week and say, hey guys, here's the update, we're still working on this, blah 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 blah. But she essentially took it was like $5,000 for the retainer fee. I had to pay about $3,000 of that. My dad paid $2,000. There was like a initial $300 consultation fee, which that's non-refundable. The retainer fee is supposed to be refundable, under certain conditions, blah blah blah. There is no other unpaid, like invoices on that portal, so it's not like she could justify this by saying, oh, you didn't pay this fee, you don't pay, I don't work for you, kind of a deal. Like, there's none of that. And we've gotten pushback from her. We've gotten, like, she goes from saying, oh, you have a very strong case, or you have a strong case for this, to going, you don't have that strong of a case. Oh wait, you said you can corroborate these things. Oh well, now you have a strong case. It's like back and forth, and being ghosted, not even having a the professionalism to call us or have her legal assistant, hey, could you call those folks and let them know blah 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 blah. All that. So then basically today, like, there's no communication. There's no point to communicating with her. And I basically got fed up to the point that I'm like, okay, that's it. I'm flying over there, and I scheduled a flight for day after tomorrow. I have this big term project due, by basically like in 12 hours from now. We have pretty much everything done. We just got to do the documentation, which includes a grader file. We got to like work our way through that, so I'll be working on that. I have like this little blip, like 10 points blip out of I think it's the final assignment for that class also, that's due tomorrow. Shouldn't be too bad. There's a quiz, which it's like a 3-hour long quiz. I can go and take that, but that's like I mean, that's open book, open notes, open internet. So again, it shouldn't be too bad. I'm in a position right now where, as long as the term project turns out all right, and I just finished out the assignments and the quiz as well, and I should be able to do well on the the final. I can clinch an A in the class basically. It's not out of the realm of possibility. It's a high likelihood as long as certain things line up, and if not, then probably an A minus. But because like the quizzes and exams are open book, open internet, and the exams are pretty much like they take the quizzes and they create a test bank out of that, and then like mix up a collection of questions for that, and you're basically allowed to look through your old quizzes and the internet and so on, and answer that. So it's kind of like I don't know, you would have to sort of be going out of your way to make it impossible for yourself, because the majority of the actual learning is in the assignments and in the projects and that sort of thing. Same thing with my C++ class. So this class I'm talking about, the term project, is my data structures with Java class. The other one is programming methods with C++. And I complete the data structures with Java class. I can apply for a certificate of specialization in Java programming. So that'll be the first one to knock out end of this semester. So I'll have made that progress, and then I can put that on my resume and kind of clean up my resume a bit to make myself way more appealing and visible to recruiters, and that that sort of field, more engineering related. And then pretty much everything else after tomorrow is online. Yeah, but everything else is online, so I can be pretty much anywhere in the world as long as I have a stable internet connection. I'll be able to take care of whatever's left, which includes a couple 3 finals and some other assignments. And I did have to drop the physics class, so I got a W in that, but I can probably pull off an A in everything else. We're taking the physics over the summer online, along with a couple other classes that count towards other certificates, and just expand my knowledge base so I can put more stuff on my resume essentially. But flying out on Sunday, so I'll have some things to do today and tomorrow to get all prepared for that. We'll have to take like a Uber or a Lyft to the airport, the local airport, because we have a regional airport here. Fly out of there, get to the Midwest middle of the afternoon, and then go immediately to the hotel to check in, drop off my stuff, and then whether I decide to relax for a little bit or just hop back in the car and drive over to where the office is. They won't be open. It's going to be they're Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. So Sunday they won't be there, but I'll have time to explore and get a feel for the the locale, the geography, so to speak, the layout. Then on Monday, I'm gonna show up bright and early, and as frustrated as I am, as angry as I am about this, I'm obviously not gonna do anything stupid. Even if there were no legal consequences, the reality is that if you find yourself being the person who's, getting super enraged and making threats or giving ultimatums or so, that's not only an indication that you're in the weaker position than the other person, but it also gives them an easy out. Instead of reconsidering their actions and behaviors and adjusting accordingly to keep the relationship, so to speak, professional or romantic or what have you. But barring there being no other way out for yourself, it really is a great way to screw everything up permanently. And given where we're at in the timeline, I don't want to have to go through the whole, hassle and strain of finding a new attorney and convincing, another attorney to represent our case. Especially since, if you have to fire your previous attorney, then they look at that and go like, it's almost like they look at that and you're presumed to be somehow at fault in all likelihood. They'll look at that and go, it's almost like being an employee and going to HR. HR is there to protect the company. They're not your friends. Your coworkers are not your friends. And they'll look at it from the perspective of like, how did this person screw up and how can we protect the company? And it's almost like that with trying to get another attorney, where it's like, oh, well, why didn't things work out with your last attorney, Oh, well, blah, 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 blah. Okay, Yeah, I find that hard to believe, And then top of that, even if you do hire a new attorney and like a month or two later you got your court case, they've had to introduce themselves to the other side as your new representative. That kind of calls things into question for the judge. Like judge will look at that and go, well, what happened with your old attorney? Like, well, what happened there? Why did you have such a falling out that you fired them, or they decided they were going to drop your case, or whatever, whatever the case may be. So, I really want to avoid that. Essentially going there to introduce myself, but also, because I'll be there for a week, to essentially force, or maybe that's not the right word to use, to facilitate by all legally sound, morally and ethically sound means the paperwork to be completed and submitted, and for us to get a court date, so that we'll have that in place so we can, get through that. So that's that right now. The other thing I want to talk about, which I think, since I've kind of gone off to the tangent, I've almost lost some of the spit and vinegar I had about it, but been having some disagreements with my sister about, how to proceed, because I don't know how much. I think initially, like, she really seemed to like give a damn about all this, but like, for one thing, she has expressed to me that, when this kind of stuff happens, like, it's not like she gets angry and wants to, get justice, but that she just wants to give up. That's one thing. Another thing is that I've noticed that, as the time for her supposed getting married, wedding, which she wants to have on the exact same day as her parents, which is fine, approaches, it's kind of like she cares less and less, because she's like, oh, I want to put this behind me, I want to let this go. I got the life insurance money, I want to go spend it. I want to buy myself lunch with it, I want to do all these things with it, and I really don't care about the house. I know you want that. I was just going to give you my share, which, in effect, doesn't really do anything, because the amount that I would need to buy out the shares of the two scumbag cousins is still the same. And initially the plan was we would pool our monies together. I have what remains of my life insurance money. She has her life insurance money. I would probably liquidate some assets. I'm looking for a job. We pool that all together, and then that would decrease whatever the remainder would be, and then I could take on a much smaller loan, which would be a heck of a lot easier to get and to pay off, and then that would push them out of the the picture, so to speak. And personally, my plan would have been then to sort of repay my sister for sticking up for me and taking my side to have my back. I would want to buy out her share, which would be worth way more than even the life insurance money. and you know, she would be able to basically have a fast stack of cash she could start off her new life with. But you know, this is something that it's like you gotta like sort of be able to think about things rationally, not emotionally, and you gotta think about things long term. Because you know, for one thing, there's the issue with, okay, she'd be getting way more money for somebody who doesn't want to screw her over. Other thing is having a house that, you know, we own, we have paid off, we'd have a roof, you know, over our head to fall back on. Because, side note, my parents being baby boomers, they pretty much screwed the pooch on the family finances. There's really no way I think that my dad could conceivably pay off the remainder of the mortgage he has, given that he took out so much additional debt, you know, HELOCs and all these like classic boomer moves on his primary residence, and nearly got foreclosed on multiple times, largely due to a combination of his financial efforty, but also my mom's lifestyle of financial efforty. May she rest in peace, but still we're left with to pick up the pieces. Among other things, like my sister and her crap that she pulled. And I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I was completely innocent of things like, oh, my dad didn't have to support me, but I did not do nearly the amount of stuff that they did. Partially because I, you know, did or would have gotten my ass kicked for getting out of line that much. But, anyways, I would want the house because I don't want to have to shoulder the burden of trying to provide or find housing for my sister and her fiance, soon-to-be husband, who really doesn't. I mean, he has a job, but it's one of those, from what I understand, it's kind of like, I wouldn't call it seasonal work. It is consistent work. He works at a pet shop as like a manager in exotic pets, and he does do some stuff on the side where he will sort of like run a sort of a business of sorts where he sells, in addition to that, what the, you know, the pet shop sells, he sells it like exotic pets himself, and so he can make a pretty sizable amount of cash. I mean, 50-60K is not something to laugh at or scoff at, but it's not the kind of thing, at least in my opinion, looking at what I know of having been out in the world, lived on my own, etc., etc. It's really not something to depend on for like having a stable living, especially since my sister has never worked, and I don't think she really has the intention to get an actual friggin' job, you know, that's something respectable and you know, significant enough in terms of pay and job security. Sorry about that. That, you know, they could expect to really have anything. And you know, I'm sure I'm gonna get they get out there into the wider world like, oh my god, did you know that an apartment usually costs $2,000 a month even in this area? And I'll be like, really? You know, if you just freaking listen to me, we wouldn't have to worry about it. Nobody would have to be concerned in this family. Not that it is legally, morally, or ethically my responsibility, but no one would have to be concerned in this family about housing costs, because that would all be taken care of. But you didn't want to listen to me. You wanted to go for the money and go for the quick and easy, you know, path. In the moment, quick and easy, but in the long term, long and hard. If you haven't heard of that before, now you have. And you know, splurge, and money, and possessions, and shoes, and clothes, and vacations, and expensive lunches, and ba. And you know, I live in a very high cost of living area, relatively speaking, particularly, you know, general for the world. So I know stuff can cost a lot, just, you know, surviving. But at the same time, could have taken care of a long-term, you know, problem would be my response, you know, along with a whole bunch of probably expletives and you bleeping this, why didn't you bleep and listen to me, etc., etc. But it also requires long-term thinking for in terms of long-term security, as well as, you know, intergenerational wealth and just the sense of having something that's been in the family. It's a house, been in the family for so many generations. Like, to be able to have that, which I don't know if we even still have the chance to, given the time that's passed and all the things that could have been done, and the fact that even if that stuff has been done, we have no signs of it because we're dealing with fraudulent people who would probably try and pocket all the cash that they could, given that they're scummy individuals. But I guess my takeaway point from that is I'm kind of like realizing that while there are cases in this world where you have people who end up broke their entire lives because of crummy circumstances, that they were brought up in and live around, and lack of opportunity, and lack of training and education, and nobody sticks their neck out for them, or looks out for them, or things of that nature. I've seen plenty enough cases where you have a person who finally gets this windfall of cash. They could do great, amazing things with it. I mean, heck, if my sister said, I really want to invest this, I want to make my money work for me, hey, open up a high yield savings account, open up a brokerage account with Fidelity or Vanguard, or thus and such, TD Ameritrade. I don't know if they're still a thing, etc., etc. I know, here's some ideas. Here's some don't invest in one company, invest in as many as you can, spread your money out. Here's how you can do that. Oh, there's this index or exchange traded fund called VOO, that's the ticker, Vanguard top 500, whatever, total market, blah blah blah. Park your money in there, get enrolled in a dividend reinvestment program, and just let it sit there and build up. That's your money working for you. Trust me, in 5-10 years, maybe more, they'll be rolling in dough, and you'll be thanking your lucky stars that you followed some solid investment advice, or you at least got like a pretty good idea of what to do with your money, or at least you didn't just spend it on a bunch of materialistic crap. You'll be able to sit pretty and life will be great. But she doesn't go and ask me about those things. She doesn't ask me about savings accounts, interest and compound interest and all these things, or getting her money right, or things of that nature. It's like all this short-term stuff, and then when the bank account gets emptied and closed, and she'll blame my dad, she'll blame me, she'll blame her fiance or husband, everybody except herself, and she'll want to cry about it, and she's in her mid-30s, and it's just kind of like, okay, like, when are you going to make the effort to wake up and become a freaking adult? But that's why I've kind of concluded that, and I get that, quote unquote, the media portrays things, in an extreme manner, like whether it's right wing or left wing or anything of that nature. They make it seem like, oh, everybody's downtrodden that we're talking about. They, all this happened to them and they didn't deserve it. And it's all because of, 100% because of external factor A, B, C, X, Y, Z. Or on the other extreme, and it's it's all their fault. They didn't take personal responsibility or something of that nature. But I have to honestly say, like, I think that in a significant percentage of the cases, I don't know if it's the majority, I'm kind of leaning in that direction, that most people who are dirt poor or broke, I don't want to say they deserve it. That's kind of a strong word, but they're not completely innocent of the outcome, barring some extreme circumstances, which I know there are folks out there who, they did everything they were told to do. They worked hard, they worked smart, they did this, they hustled, blah, 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 and they still ended up with nothing. And I feel bad for those people who actually made a genuine freaking effort and tried to learn and tried to adapt and tried to, make it happen. I feel bad for those people, but far too many people, I think, and again, I don't want to use the word deserve, but they played a significant role in their own downfall, their, the onset of their own poverty, or the continuation of their own poverty. And I'm sure for a lot of people, if you got intergenerational poverty where you got nobody around you who knows anything about how to be good with money, it's that much harder, Like, I've had times in my life where I was lucky enough that I made friends with the right kind of folks who, introduced me to things like investing and, high yield savings accounts and money market accounts and, total money makeover and, things of that nature, where it's like, okay, now I'm actually starting to think smart about money as opposed to being impulsive and stupid. Things of that nature. And if you don't have those folks around, it can be, it's way easier to continue on the path of poverty than it is to, right your ship and correct your course and that sort of thing. Kind of like being an addict of some sort and being surrounded by a bunch of addicts, or at least people who are indifferent to your problems. Just easier to continue down that dark path. But I've seen far too many cases, particularly in my family, where it's kind of like a matter of whether it's the family as a whole or an individual. It's kind of like they get through the first 3 quarters of the, metaphorical American football game of life. They're leading by 2 or 3 touchdowns. They get to that 4th quarter and they pull basically a Green Bay Packers maneuver where they fumble the ball. The other side, recovers it, runs that in for a touchdown. They get the ball back. They throw an interception. The other team, not only intercepts the ball, but takes that in for their touchdown, and then, and they both times they run it in or they kick it in, and now, the other team is either tied or they're up by, a point or 2, or, and then they kick in a field goal, and, other team kicks in a field goal, and then and they, they go to however it works, the different point scoring, but they either end up tied and they go into sudden death, over time, or they're now trailing by 2 points and the clock runs out. Maybe they lose at that point, or like I said, they go into sudden death overtime and the other team kicks a field goal in or something of that nature, gets another touchdown, they lose, and it's like, you were in the 4th quarter, you were ahead by 2 or 3 touchdowns, American terminology here, and all you had to do was just hold on to the ball, be difficult, for the other team to steal the ball away from, run out the clock, and you would have had, it would have been game 1, whether that was a, conference championship or the Super Bowl, and he would have been the champions. But you couldn't do that, and it's the same thing, been the same thing in my family where, whether it's my grandfather on my dad's side or my grandparents on my mom's side, or even like going further back, like my great-great-grandparents on my mom's side through my grandpa's father, they would have been the equivalent of multi-millionaires in today's dollars. And that all ended up being lost during the Great Depression. And I don't know if any sort of financial impropriety played any role, and I don't think it did. I think it was just some was the times and the fact that I think in general a lot of people just weren't really prepared for it to get as bad as it got. Can't blame them. They did call it the Great. They do call it the Great Depression for a reason. Excuse me. But that, like, those places are still there. The family farm is still there, but it got passed through some other branch of the family. And my great grandpa, I think he fell into alcoholism largely because of just how hard life was, and it was like this great legacy that it's sort of like it's this myth or this, not even this myth, this legend of how great the family was and what it could have been, and you had this repetitive cycle going on, and you have this in so many families where, your grandpa, your great grandpa, your grandma, great grandma, they were from a family that had all this wealth, and then here's what happened. It was lost because the farm went to, this idiot in the family who decided to run up a bunch of debts, and then the farm got taken away, or had a massive estate and they had to start selling off the land in order to pay off debts or finance a lifestyle, or they decided to spend all the money on building expensive mansions, kind of like the Vanderbilts, and you have this fall of this great house, and then you end up being the person, 3 or 4 generations later, hearing about this, going, oh man, what could my life have been like? And then you try, and once you get over feeling sorry for yourself, you try and build that up again, and you just end up running into all these sort of like these ingrained tendencies in your own family that work against wealth accumulation, work against wealth building and intergenerational wealth. And that's when I think, depending upon the individual, you can say they more or less played a huge role in either their wealth creation or their poverty. And it's kind of like why I just don't feel so sorry for folks who will complain about that, particularly if I know any incriminating details about their lives. So I can say, okay, this didn't just drop out of the sky and just happen to you. Like, you made a bunch of really stupid decisions, you knew what you were doing, and you thought it wasn't going to burn you that bad, and it did, and now here you are, and you want to go and say it's this or that person or factor outside of your control that did it all to you. And it's like, no, you screwed around, and now you're feeling the burn of the consequences. So that's why I would find it really hard to feel sorry for my sister if this ends up going down like that, which I'm doing whatever I can to prevent that. But obviously I can't be building castles in the sky. That's gonna cause more pain than good for me. So anyways, I think that's pretty much what I wanted to talk about. Nofap Day 50, and planning on traveling back east to basically settle these issues that haven't been taken care of, even though they were supposed to be taken care of. But anywho, thanks for watching, folks, and I'll hopefully see you around. Bye bye.